If you've been putting in the effort for a long time now and you're still not experiencing the results that you've been wanting and desiring, and you're ready to change that, then this video is for you. In my last mind yoga session, I was talking with a client and she was expressing how she was feeling quite dejected and deflated because they'd been putting in all of this effort and it was a struggle for them to see that they were actually going to get to where they wanted, because all of the historical evidence was just proof that they haven't done it yet, and so they won't be able to do it. And I get that. That's totally understandable. It can be difficult to maintain faith in the direction that we're heading when historical evidence doesn't support us. The thing is, if we wait for proof of being able to do it, to actually have the energy and put in the work to get it done, then it won't work. It doesn't work that way. Think of it this way. I'm a handstand teacher. I've been training and teaching handstands for 10 years. When I first started to learn handstands, I couldn't do one, unsurprisingly. And if I was needing the proof of being able to do a handstand myself before actually putting in the work to do the handstand and get there, then I would have given up probably before I started, at least halfway through, and I wouldn't have had the drive and determination to get there. I didn't know that I was going to be able to do a handstand. I didn't have proof. All I had was the belief. There was something in me that just knew it was possible and that I wanted to express that part of myself. And this is not based on the evidence that I had in the past, because nothing in my past told me that I definitely could, but I had a lot of evidence to support the thesis, the idea that it was possible. And this was me being in pretty good shape, me having had like a yoga practice for a little bit at that time, being relatively capable with my body, knowing its limitations, seeing other people be able to do one. If someone else is able to do it, then that's proof enough that it's possible. And that can be the fuel that inspires you to continue even when you're not getting the result that you're wanting. And really this speaks into tantric teaching. There is the difference between kriya and karma. You've likely heard the word karma. What it refers to is action. The difference between kriya and karma, both meaning action, karma is results driven. It's dependent on an expected outcome, whereas kriya is action done purely for the joy inherent in doing that thing. It's the joy inherent in purely just doing that thing for the love of it. And this is such an important distinction, because if the action that you're doing is dependent on seeing a particular kind of result, then it means anytime you're not getting that result, you're experiencing suffering, because you're wanting your reality to be different than what it actually is. Now, this can be useful. It can be fuel and inspire. However, when it is used on the other side of that coin, it can be dejecting and disheartening and discouraging. What's then necessary is having the kriyic action. What is it that brings you so much joy that you would do that thing whether or not it brought you the result? So, for example, for me, with the handstands, yes, I had this drive and determination to get there because at some level, I just knew I could do it. And the fact that I couldn't do it was frustrating to me. Hey, I should be able to do this thing. I'm in good shape. I have all of the ability. Something's just not clicking and I don't know what that is. And that's frustrating to me. So I want to figure that out. I want to have that mastery. And on the other side of that, the thing that was fueling me was I freaking love putting my hands on the floor and my legs in the air and going on that journey of figuring it out. That journey of figuring out the puzzle. What it is that I'm missing, what it is that I'm not seeing, coupled with the pure ecstasy of defying gravity and having my hands on the floor and my legs in the air, and even just for that fraction of a second, getting that sensation was enough. It gave me sufficient joy to continue, even though I wasn't seeing the expected outcome of what I was wanting, which is, freestand handstand as long as I want, whenever I want. It took me 6 months of pretty much daily, consistent practice in between, life, having a full-time job, having other commitments, sleeping, working, everything else in my life. It took me about 6 months of focused attention, dedication, practice, and that was with not really even the right knowledge. I had relatively right knowledge and I was acquiring it as I went, but if I knew then what I knew now, I'm pretty sure I could streamline that process to 3 months if I put in the dedication and time and effort in the intelligent way. And if I had been going for those 6 months and been frustrated and seeing every attempt as a failure rather than a step towards success, I never would have gotten there. And that's such an important distinction. It's seeing the space between where you are and where you want to be, not as a deficit, but as an invitation for growth. How can you continue to step into that direction? Rather than seeing where you are as proof of not where you want to be, instead seeing it as proof of where you no longer were, or proof of where you used to be but no longer are. Because if you're not where you were, even though you might not be where you want to get to and be eventually, you're on that journey and you're on that path. And if you can find the kriyic action, the part of that thing that you're looking to acquire that just sparks the joy in you. The thing with kriyic action in tantric teaching is that it fuels. And if you've experienced this, think of anything in your life that you sucked at the start, and now you're fairly decent at, sufficiently good to not class yourself in the category of sucking at it. Someone can ask you, how do you do that? How did you learn to do that? Likelihood is there's something in your life. Actually, 100%, there's definitely something in your life. Like walking. You sucked at walking when you first started learning. When you first started to learn to walk, you were falling over all of the time. Obviously, I don't know you, but let's extrapolate from all of the kids who do learn to walk and anecdotal evidence that shows that there is no child that I'm aware of or have ever heard of who just walks out of the womb, okay? It's not a thing. You learn progressively. But if a child had the mentality that every time they took a attempted step and fell, that they were a failure, then they'd never get to that goal of walking. They don't know it's possible within themselves. And the thing that doesn't stop them is this: they don't have the mental, emotional knots that create the false narrative to keep them from persisting, to keep them from trying. What happens is, as adults, we get these mental, emotional knots. Our past, our historical evidence, our experience through the world, it deflates us. We see and we store the things that we experience as negative, and we believe them. In tantric teaching, it says the cause of all mind-based suffering is ignorance to the truth. Put another way, the reason you're suffering is because you're believing something that isn't true. There's something that's stuck in your mental, emotional layer of consciousness which a part of you believes, perceives to be true, even though it's not. There is an aspect of it that is true, but it's not serving you. And that's why you're having this disjointedness. There's this part of you, this conflict, this part of you that knows that there's something misaligned, that something isn't right. And really, this speaks into the idea in tantric teaching of the essence nature that resides within us, the potentiality for everything. It's essentially, it's like the God spark that exists within us. It's this pure divine consciousness, and on top of that there is the individuated sense of self, all of the mental chatter, the mental emotional knots that get in the way. When we're kids, when we're young, that's not there. As we develop and age and have more experience, we start to get these knots. And because we don't have the ability, we don't have the knowledge, and we haven't had parents who have had the knowledge to help us massage out those knots, they get stuck. And then we get knots on knots on knots until the point when we feel stuck and we can't move without experiencing suffering. And it's unsurprising, right? So in tantric teaching, there's this idea of sovereignty, and that's taking complete ownership and responsibility for oneself. The thing is, when we're kids, we give away part of our sovereignty to our parents. We adopt their some of their truths, their beliefs, unconsciously, but it's just how it is. It's the sacrifice we make of being able to develop as we go, not having a level of awareness to be able to make a conscious choice, that we're still in that nurturant developmental stage. And so we adopt the impressions, the scars essentially, from those who we hand over our sovereignty to, those who take responsibility for us until we're ready to do so for ourselves. The thing is, when we become ready, we're not actually equipped with the tools to, one, look back on those impressions, those knots, those scars that we have acquired accidentally through those people who have taken care of us, and we're not encouraged to do that. We don't have the ability, and we don't have the inclination to do so, or the support in doing so. But going back to learning to walk as a child, because we don't have all of that, and because we're encouraged to continue to try learning to walk, we do. There's a part of us that feels inspired. We see these people in our lives who we have who take care of us, who we have given our sense of sovereignty to care for us. They're walking around and we're inspired by them and we want to be like them. And so we continue to try walking amidst the continued failure. And think of how long it takes a child to learn to walk. It is at least 6 months, if not longer. I'll be honest, I don't have children. I've never had children. I don't know technically how long on average it takes for children to learn to walk. I'm going to assume it's about 6 months or longer. And think of it this way. Even if it is just 6 months, all they have to do is eat, sleep, and poop, and that's it. They don't have the added complications of jobs and family dynamics and anything else in life. All they have to do is just focus on trying to learn to walk, and it's the joy at being able to express that part of themselves and not having the inhibition that keeps them down. And that is the key. If you are recognizing that you're putting in the work and you're not seeing the results that you're looking for, rather than being dejected, how can you find that spark, maintain that spark, and recognize that it is not a linear process? Think of walking, handstands. You fail. Which way? This way? You fail for a very long time with very slight improvement until you get there. And it's the same for pretty much everything, for everyone. Some people are gifted and fortunate, and that the time that they go through is relatively shorter, but they go on the same trajectory. It's an exponential growth. It's not linear. You don't necessarily get better with relation to time exactly. This is why you can shorten the process. It's why I say when I teach people handstands, it took me 6 months, but we can get you there quicker if you're willing to put in the time, because I have acquired the right knowledge to support you in doing that. And that's what we do with mind yoga as well. If there is something that you're wanting, but you're not sure what it is, you just know that there's something that you're wanting, or you know what it is, but you don't know how to get it, then clearing out those mental, emotional knots that are preventing you from having the freedom of movement to move towards it is what's going to support you. Because if you're experiencing suffering, the way to alleviate it is to stop believing whatever it is that's not true. And maybe you don't know what that is right now. Because if you did, you'd stop. And if you knew how, you would have already done it already. If you don't know, you don't know, and that's okay. Because in tantric teaching, everyone is always doing the best they can with what they know to satisfy the needs that they have. And it's not that you're lacking the capability, it's that you're lacking the ability. You have the potential, the infinite potential of divinity, of God resides within you, as it does with everyone. You have the capability to achieve what it is that you're wanting. What's stopping you is the ignorance, the not knowing, the belief of something that's not actually true, which is preventing you from going in the direction. Taking the right action, coupled with the right knowledge, fueled by the right will, the right desire to actually get there. So if that is you, if you recognize that you're not achieving the thing that you're wanting, you're finding it difficult to stay the course, one, I'm going to say persist. Because if you give up, you will definitely not get there. But if you keep going, then you likely will, or at least the potential, the likelihood of getting it is definitely not zero. With the right support, we can increase that likelihood and we can diminish the time that it takes. But that's up to you. Believer in sovereignty, in tantric teaching, that we're all sovereign beings. Even if as children we sacrifice some of that, as adults we have sovereignty. At any given moment we have the power to choose. The power to choose what was and what we've been accustomed to, or the power to choose change, the power to choose different. We might not know how, but we know that it's possible. And that's all we need, is the belief that it's possible. And if you have the belief that your life can be different in some way than it is, and you know what you don't want, even if you don't know what you do, then you can get there. And that's what mind yoga is all about. It's the idea of these tantric teachings that say, by acknowledging and appreciating the divinity that resides within you and getting rid of all of those mental, emotional knots that are preventing you, you can enjoy the worldly success that is your birthright, that is freely available to you. So if you want that, and I want that for you, because if we're all expressing the divine potentiality that resides within us, that we've been invited to uniquely express through our individuated expression of life, of who we are, then that is a beautiful world that we can create of connectivity, of intimacy, of love, of prosperity, of joy. And I want to see that world. I want to support you in bringing your joy into this life, sharing it with those that you love. So if that sounds good to you, drop me a little message. If there was anything that you liked in this video, then write that in the chat too. Feel free to reach out. If you want to know more about mind yoga, I will put that video right there. I look forward to chatting to you soon.